I'm really excited about today's guest. We have Rachel from Pain Free Kitchen. And the reason why I'm so excited about her is she seems to be on an advance of a similar type of journey that I'm trying to take with my fibro, which is managing her fibromyalgia and now helping others manage their fibromyalgia through diet changes, exercise, stress management, and there's a fourth thing, but I'll let Rachel introduce us to what that fourth thing is. Hey!
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm good. I was just trying to get situated with all the technology.
It looks nice and bright where you are.
Thank you. Yeah, we finally have the sun. It has been so Chicago, which I'm sure is you're probably the same with you. It's like always dark and gloomy during the winter. Like the sun's never really out. And finally, like this week in particular, the weather has gotten warmer and the sun's coming out and all the snow is melting.
Yeah, we've had the same. It's been like, it has felt like summer. Like there's been like 2 or 3 days this week where it's like everyone's out, and I mean I've got no sleeves on currently, but like people have been talking about having barbecues, people are hanging their washing out on lines again. It's like, oh, hope it's here.
Yes, exactly.
But your weather is way more extreme, isn't it? Because I've been seeing on your stories you've had insane snow.
Yes. So this is the first time. The last time it snowed this much was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, we had so much snow that we have this like main road called Lakeshore Drive, which is like one of the most famous roads, I guess, in Chicago. And 10 years ago, it snowed so much that people had to abandon their cars.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get through. And so everybody just left hundreds of cars on the road. And thankfully, which is kind of ironic because of COVID and quarantine, everybody's home. So thankfully, like even though we've had, I think we had something like 3 feet of snow total, that, everybody's home. So
yeah,
it was fine.
There's no abandoning of cars. There's no emergencies being pulled. That's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to meet with you because I am personally on. I've been calling it a factory reset, and I think I still can call it a factory reset. It's been a factory reset of 2 years so far, but since I made the decision 2 years ago minimum. In fact, I think do you know what? It's actually like 2 years to the day. How weird's that?
So fun.
That my approach to managing my condition at the time just wasn't effective. And I had a really, really poorly spell with my mental health. And so that was like a really good opportunity for me to hit stop and go, right, okay, let's take this seriously now.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Because my approach to managing fibro way back when I was diagnosed in 2012 was to manage stress, get effective sleep. Diet wasn't at all talked about back then for me. It was mostly about stress management techniques and exercise, which I was really keen to explore at the time, but didn't really take seriously enough because I just didn't get through the pain thing. Anyway, I'm waffling. I managed for years without medication, just doing mindfulness and working too many hours. Then life changes, things build up. I end up going to the doctors, and my medication just started wrapping up and up and up and up. And before I knew it, I was on a real cocktail of drugs. I was on duloxetine, amitriptyline, cocodamol, and it just kept going up and up. And I was also smoking cannabis on top of that. And my body just got to a point of like, what the fuck are you doing? And just gave up. So about 2 years ago, hit the reset button. I've been very lucky to be working with an acupuncturist who is helping me with nutrition.
Nice.
So cut out loads of stuff and built. But basically, you seem to be. So I'm at the point now where I'm really happy with my management of food.
Yeah.
And that has really, really been a huge part of getting me to where I am now.
Yes.
And I've started on the sort of journey of exercise and taking that more seriously since September, and I've been building that up gradually. But I'm not an expert on any of it, and I feel like you are.
Thank
well,
you.
In fact, it's not even that I feel you are. I know you are. You've got a living masters in it and everything.
Yeah.
So what I love about interviewing people on Friends of Fibro is I learn something from everybody, and then that can be shared with other people as well. And it's just really special that you're here. So I'm really, really grateful.
Yeah, no problem.
I've got like a ton of questions.
Okay. I'm ready.
We may not get through them all because I appreciate you've also got a bit, like this is the start of your day and I'm like in the middle of mine. So
yeah.
Right. So what I love about this content I've seen of yours on YouTube is there's a video you made, I think it was about 5 years ago, where you talked about finding the cure for your fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
And I really like that video because I didn't feel when I was watching it like I was being told this was the answer for me.
Yeah.
Really liked that. What I liked even more was that you revisited it.
Yeah.
And you did like a follow-on video and you called it the same title but brackets the truth.
Yes.
So talk to me about that. So anybody that hasn't seen that video, can you talk to me a little bit about that and give me a little bit of background on that? Because I find that really helpful.
Absolutely. So we'll kind of start with kind of where my journey started. So I was diagnosed, I think it was like 2010, 2011, and went through the same thing that everybody else goes to. It took me 10 different doctors. The last one finally diagnosed me with fibro. And then that was it. And then, oh, you have fibro. Goodbye. Get out of my office. I have nothing for you. And I then found a fibromyalgia specialist at Rush Medical. And I thought, this is it. He's a specialist. He will have all of the answers. And we did, he examined me. And at the end, he said, yep, you definitely have fibro, 100%. And I said, okay, cool. Well, how do we fix it? And he said, oh, you don't. You just deal with it. And I said, well, what about all of the medications? Like there's, Lyrica and all these other ones that I see advertisements for. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, oh, don't even bother. They're a waste of time. And I remember walking out of that appointment, just tears. And I even have, like, to this day, I still have a screenshot of my Facebook profile that I ranted about how I couldn't believe it. He wouldn't even give me medication. What am I going to do? And I'm actually now, 10 years later, extremely thankful that he said that to me, because I think that if he had given me medication, it would have taken me much longer for me to kind of take charge of my own healing in a way. So I left, I didn't know what to do. And this was right around the time that paleo and the paleo movement and Whole30, and that really became popular. And mind you, at this time, there were no fibromyalgia Facebook groups. There were no fibromyalgia people talking on Instagram. Yeah. I didn't even know anybody with fibro. It was some strange medical condition that at the time I honestly thought was fake. I remember Googling, is fibromyalgia fake? Because I thought, oh, this is what doctors tell you when they don't know. It's a throwaway diagnosis.
Yeah. Which is certainly what other people tended to think, wasn't it?
Yes.
As well.
Exactly.
Whether you I don't know about you, but if you search for it online, that's kind of the response you get back, right? Oh, it's just last resort. They don't know what else is wrong with you.
Exactly. And so at the time I thought, well, I'm just going to try eating paleo. And that's what the guy I was dating at the time, he wanted to try it. And we did something called the Whole30. So the Whole30, it's fairly popular now, but it had just come out back then. And it's an 30-day elimination diet where you cut out a whole host of foods. So you cut out all grains, all dairy, all legumes, all alcohol, and it seems pretty extreme. But the point is, at the end of 30 days, you reintroduce one food one by one and see how it affects you. And I did it because that's what was popular. And honestly, to be honest, I did it to lose weight. I did not do it to help my fibro at all. I just thought that it might happen. And at the end of 30 days, I kept thinking, you know, I haven't really flared that much. Like I haven't had like a bad flare. Of course, you know, some minor pain, but nothing really intense. And I thought that was kind of weird. And then when I did my reintroduction and I ate gluten, I immediately flared, like within a couple hours. And then for the next 3 days, my whole body was inflamed and hurting and tight. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. Like it's gluten. I can't believe it. And so I cut gluten out. And mind you, when I say, oh, I cut gluten out, I always like to remind people, when I say that, it wasn't just like, all right, no more gluten. No, it was like, oh, I have to cut gluten out. Oh, but what about pizza? Oh, but what about brownies? Oh, what about cakes? Like, I don't want to do this. Do I really want to do this? I mean, it took me years to finally admit to myself, like, okay, this is worth it. And so I always like to share that with people, because sometimes I think when people see my story, they think, oh, she makes it look so easy. Why am I having such a hard time giving up gluten?
Yeah,
And so
definitely not easy.
it's not easy.
Yeah,
It is
not.
absolutely not easy. So it takes time, but I did it. And so that's why I came out with my first video of, you know, how I got rid of my fibromyalgia. And I said, you should try the Whole30, experiment with food. I think that there's something here, because it worked for me. And I got a lot of interesting feedback on that video, because I have some people who said it absolutely changed their lives. And I have hundreds of emails from people saying, oh my God, I did the Whole30, you were right. For me, it was alcohol, gluten, and artificial sweeteners. Or one woman said, for me, it was corn. I had to give up corn products, which completely surprised me. But the more I kind of continued my own research, I started realizing, I thought, no, I don't think it's just the Whole30. Like the Whole30 was a tool that I used, but it's not necessarily the answer, and it's not the right answer for everybody. And so that's when I started doing more digging. And you're right. So in 2000, I can't remember if it was 2016 or 2017, I got my master's. So my master's is in exercise science. And as part of your master's degree, you have to do a thesis. And so my thesis was using exercise to treat fibromyalgia.
Love that. So you took your condition and you took something that was affecting your life and you thought, no, hang on, I'm gonna find a way to better this for myself, and I'm gonna use science to do that.
Yes.
Love that.
So I just wanted to do some real research myself. And this is something that, I mean, we all kind of feel like we all do research, right? When we have fibromyalgia, we have to do our own research.
Yeah.
So we spend hours on Google and reading blogs and watching YouTube videos, and everybody has an opinion or a theory. And that's all well and good. But for me, I felt like I needed some more science-based, research-based answers to things, especially if I was going to continue to talk about my own story on YouTube. I wanted to make sure that I really knew what I was talking about, because I didn't want to just be another person on the internet, saying what they thought. I wanted to share real research.
Yeah.
So I did my my master's, and what I found was absolutely fascinating. And that it said that exercise does seem to help fibromyalgia. And there are, for anybody else who's interested, if you go to Google Scholar, where they have, the links to the actual research, you will find thousands of research studies. Like when I started my master's, I thought maybe they'd be 10, 20, something like that. No, there are thousands and thousands of studies to see if exercise can help fibromyalgia. And what's interesting about that is nobody can agree what type of exercise. So that's why you always hear that, well, have you tried yoga? Well, that's because there are hundreds of studies that show that yoga could be helpful. So some people do yoga, some people do weightlifting. Pilates is a big one. There've been some really positive results with Pilates, swimming, Tai Chi, aerobic dance is another one. Just walking is another one. There's hundreds of them. But what they all kind of have in common is that, one, you move your body, and that's kind of a key. So when I tell people, I said, I know you're flaring, and I know that all you want to do is just lay in bed and you just can't get up. But moving your body actually does make it better in short bursts. So when I say move your body, it doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to go clean my house for 2 hours. Like, absolutely not. Move your body means, oh, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to get a cup of tea. I'm going to do some stretches. Maybe I'll walk back and forth between my bedroom and the living room, and then I'll come back to bed. And that's what I mean by like move your body. But the other thing also was that the reason that exercise isn't like the official cure for fibromyalgia is because too many people quit the study. And so that's a big thing. So for research to be valid, you have to have a large sample size at the end of the study. But as I'm sure you're very familiar with, exercising hurts. Mm-hmm. Like, it hurts terribly. Why would anybody with fibromyalgia want to do that? And so what happens is we recruit mostly women to the study, and then within 2 weeks, half of them quit. And I don't blame them. Like, why would you continue to exercise if you don't know for a fact it will help? Yeah. Or because your flare is so bad, you can barely get out of bed. So the idea of lifting weights, there's no way, it's not going to happen. And so almost everybody quits, but every single person that finished the study, their fibromyalgia pain got better. And it's study after study after study. It says women who's completed 12 weeks of walking, or completed 12 weeks of weightlifting, or completed 12 weeks of swimming, all of them report a reduction in pain. And then there are a few studies specifically that say with weightlifting, everybody that finished the weightlifting study, their fibromyalgia actually went into remission. And so remission, that is the only term that is recognized by the medical community when it comes to fibromyalgia. So if you are on Instagram and you see someone that says they can cure you, absolutely not. Fibromyalgia cannot be cured. It will always be there, kind of dormant. And that's something to really think about. And that's also why, to go back to that first video when we talked about like how I got rid of my fibromyalgia, mm-hmm. A lot of people really took offense to that title that I used on my YouTube. And you'll see if you read the comments, a lot of people are very angry about it. But a lot of that, like the reason I had to title that way in particular was because that's the only way I can get people to click on the video.
Yeah.
Everybody is always Googling for a cure or how to get rid of fibromyalgia. But really what we can all hope for is remission, or sort of where our symptoms are so controlled that they don't affect our lives at all. That, you know, as long as we stick to our sort of regime. So for me, it's exercise, nutrition, etc. I'm symptom free. I'm not feeling any pain right now. I don't feel any exhaustion right now. No fibro fog, no sensitive skin, nothing. And
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
How long has it been like that for you?
So I believe my official diagnosis for in remission was 2015. And
Incredible.
So it has been a while. And again, like, that's why I wanted to get the master's, because I didn't want to go around claiming, oh, I have remission, and not know exactly why. Because that, I mean, I guess that's just me. My integrity and I guess my integrity is very important to me. It's one of my values. And so I always want to make sure that I'm coming across as honest and giving the correct information. But yeah, so I've been in remission, but the key part of that is that I can always slip out of remission. And so that's something to think about. For me, what kind of slips me out. And that actually is a great segue to the follow-up video. So the more I started researching, I said, okay, well, weightlifting and exercise definitely played a part in it, because that's when I started exercising right around the same time. And my diet definitely played a part of it. I'm gluten and dairy free, although I've recently reintroduced dairy, and so far so good. So it really,
cheese.
Yes, just a little cheese. I've been okay. And I do lactose-free milk and lactose-free yogurt, and I've been fine. But, you know, gluten definitely still keeping that out. And then the other things I started thinking about, and the more I researched, was how much stress and sleep really play a part in finding remission. And that's what the follow-up video was. That was me after I had gone off and actually gotten my master's and re-looked at sort of everything that I had done and said, wait, I don't think it was that. I don't think it was just the food. Now I have what's called, I have like a 4-part method. And so I use this with all my clients, and I say, okay, exercise is definitely one of them. I want you to weight lift. And diet is definitely one of them. And we don't have to do something as extreme as the Whole30. A lot of my clients, I say, just cut out gluten first. That seems to be the one that has the most research behind it. It seems to affect most of us. Just try that first, and then slowly, if we need to, we'll, you know, take out more and experiment. But the 2 other things that I was doing was, one, funny enough, I did try yoga, and I was doing yoga at the time. But the reason that yoga works, it's not just because it's exercise, but because we have to de-stress. And anybody who, if you're ever tracking your symptoms, when you're in a really stressful situation, so for example, at the time I was a teacher, and whenever I felt, you know, my voice had to raise, or I was in a stressful situation, I almost felt this pain just sort of radiate across my shoulders and just get more intense as I got more stressed out. And I think that that really shows, I mean, stress is the #1 reported trigger for fibromyalgia. It's something like 86% of us all report that stress is a trigger.
Yeah.
So by going to yoga regularly, that was my de-stress. And what's hard is that's going to be different for everybody. So if you've tried yoga and you said, Rachel, this does not help me at all, well, that's because you don't find yoga de-stressful. Like, maybe for you, it's journaling. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's therapy. Like, there are so many different ways to de-stress that you just have to find the right one for you. And that's when you'll find that it's working. And then the 4th of sort of my 4-part method is sleep. And that's because something that I noticed is if I stay up too late at night, I will start to get like a tingle in my body. And that's sort of the saying, hey,
Like
your
your warning
fibromyalgia doesn't
sign.
like this.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I used to be the girl that I got 3 hours of sleep at night, 5 hours of sleep at night, like nothing. And that immediately changed. And at the time, I said, okay, I'm going to bed at 10 and I'm waking up at 7 or 8, or I can't remember, whenever I had work. And I started doing all of the sleep hygiene things. So I tried melatonin. I kept my room dark. I kept it cold. I bought one of those eye masks. We got like a fan to have like a white noise kind of thing. Like I did everything. And they're really, I share that 4-part method in the follow-up video. And that's kind of how right now with my remission, I still have to pay attention to those 4 things.
Yeah.
If one of those 4 things get out of alignment, my fibromyalgia can absolutely come back. And that was something that I noticed was happening in 2018. I was in an incredibly stressful job, and the type where I'm crying on my way home every single day. And sure enough, what starts to pop back up again, but I start feeling exhausted all the time. I'm not recovering from my workouts. I'm starting to get pain and tightness. And that was when I thought, nope, we're not doing this. Like, I can't do this. And I was extremely fortunate at the time that I had enough money set aside that I was able to just quit.
Mm-hmm.
And I just quit my job. And within 2 weeks of quitting my job, my symptoms disappeared again. And so that's the other thing, is that, all of these things, like, oh, I might make it sound so easy, right? Like, oh, change your diet, get some sleep, de-stress. But all of those things are complicated, and it's not going to happen overnight. Like you were saying, you've been on this journey for sort of 2 years. That's typical. Like it's going to take time as you experiment with these little things. And maybe your job is too stressful, but you can't afford to quit right now. It might take you a while to kind of find the right job, but once you do, you'll start to feel, a little bit better. And then the same thing with sleep. I might say, well, you need to get sleep. And you think, well, I'm in pain all the time. How the hell am I supposed to sleep? Like, are you kidding? Like, I'm flaring and you want me to sleep? Like, no way. And so it's just a matter of, finding maybe you do need some medication right now just to help you sleep. Maybe you should ask your doctor for, there's something called cyclobenzaprine, which also goes by Flexeril here. And it's a muscle relaxer. And sometimes doctors prescribe that for fibromyalgia just to help you relax at night. Or like you said, if medical cannabis is legal where you are, maybe that's what you need at night to be able to relax. There are all these different tools, but I really feel strongly that once you get that 4-part system, that anybody can find remission.
I love that. I love the use of the word remission. I really, really like that. I think that's that's my new aim now.
Yes.
Because I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I find it really difficult, even coming from somebody who has lived with fibromyalgia, for somebody to be telling somebody else that they can cure their fibromyalgia. I just actually see that as cruel, because I don't believe that to be true currently. And so, but aiming for remission makes that feel even more achievable.
Yes.
Because for me, I'm currently just about managing it, and that is my aim. And but my sort of version of managing it is not having flare-ups every couple of weeks or every couple of days. My ballpark aim is to maximum have a flare-up every 3 months type thing. But obviously the ideal is none at all.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I really like how you talk about it's, and being realistic about it, is it's all process. It's all like, change is a process that takes an awful long time. So when you're like, the 4 things sound simple,
Yes.
but therefore actually substantial things to change, which all take time and patience and trial and error.
Yeah.
And I also really like that you're very realistic, and I can't think of the word. I'm having a bit of a foggy one, because I didn't get much sleep last night, despite doing all the right things of journaling and everything. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it did help after I journaled to get to sleep, but because
Yeah.
I would lay in bed like feeling, you know, when you, like you're saying with your job, you can feel the release of stress and cortisol going through your body because your brain's just sparked a memory about something which you didn't ask for, and then all of a sudden your body's in fight and flight and you're just laying there trying to sleep and it's not working. So
Yes.
my technique with that last night was to get up and journal until I'd got it all out of my head, and then I could sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all takes time, and with sleep for me is the big one.
Yep.
As well. And I'm really starting to feel and notice that these days, when I haven't had enough sleep, my mood changes, and my tolerance changes, and my fibro fog is increased. And so I've sort of myself got a measure of, I'll do all the right things that are in my toolbox. Like, I'll have hot baths, I'll no screen time before bed, like reasonable hours, read a book, journal, etc. If I get to sort of, if I'm reaching a 2-week point and I haven't had a solid 8-hour stint and reset myself, that's when I'll be on the phone to the doctors, or going for like a Nytol or a sleeping tablet, just to help me get sort of reset that clock, because it's almost got to that point of ridiculousness where I just can't do it, and then everything just seems so much worse, doesn't it? So
yeah, and it's really interesting. So if you ever read, there are a handful of sleep studies that show, which you're probably already familiar with this, but when we sleep, there are all these different like levels of sleep. So there's like when we first fall asleep, like a very light sleep where we can easily be woken up. And it goes all the way down to like a deep kind of REM cycle, the one that is considered the restorative sleep. And during that restorative sleep, that's when our body heals. So that is really like sort of like the reboot that all humans need in order to wake up feeling refreshed. And the problem with people with fibromyalgia is we can't get there. So I have a few people that say, well, I get 8 hours of sleep, I get 9 hours of sleep, but when I wake up, I'm exhausted. Like, it feels like I didn't sleep at all. And that's what it has to do is if you don't get to that REM cycle, your body won't be restored. And if you look at all of these sleep studies, it's really fascinating because absolutely normal people, like people without fibromyalgia, when they aren't allowed to get to that REM cycle, so if they are in a study where they're forced to stay awake, what's the number one symptom they all report is fog, brain fog. And so that's when you start kind of putting these pieces together and you're like, oh, wait, fibro fog is probably because I'm not sleeping enough. And therefore, I wake up. And so when you have less sleep, you notice that your fibro fog is significantly worse. And so there are all these cool things that the more you actually read the research and you start tying pieces together, that's when it all starts to make sense.